All right, we're almost done with DCF. One more thing though, and that one more thing is the interest rate. Remember before it was 7%, we just accepted that? Well, now you're going to calculate an interest rate, okay? And that's called the weighted average cost of capital, okay? So your interest rate was 7. We also call that the discount rate, right? It's just another word for it. The discount rate was 7%, okay? So now that was your WACC also, by the way. The discount rate is also called the WACC. Okay, so from now on, when we talk about the interest rate, which is the same thing as discount rate, it's called the WACC, okay? The weighted average cost of capital. So how do we calculate the WACC? Well, the weighted average cost of capital, or the WACC, equals the cost for your company to use debt plus the cost for your company to use equity. What? Don't worry, we'll go in more detail on this in a second. All right, so you take the cost for your company to use debt, and then you multiply it by the percent of capital that you're going to use that's debt, okay? So your capital is either debt or equity. Stay with me here. Okay, simplifying it. So the cost to use debt times the percent of your capital structure that's debt, plus the cost to use equity times the percent of your capital structure that's equity, okay? So cost to use debt plus the cost to use equity. Okay, cost to use debt times the percent of debt. Cost to use debt, including tax benefits, times the percent of debt, okay? Now, when you use debt, you get a tax benefit for using it, right? So, cost to use debt times 1 minus the tax rate, okay? Now, let's assume that 40% of the capital in our company is debt and 60% is equity, okay? So, we'll replace that there, times 40%, and we'll put 60% there for that bad boy, okay? And let's assume that the tax rate is 30%. Never calculate a tax rate. Just ask the company or look at the historical tax rate they use. It's too hard. So 30%. All right, cost to use debt times 1 minus 30%, which is 0.3, times 40%. All right, we're getting there. Now, let's assume a bank loan would be 5%. Okay, someone's going to give you access to debt, right? They set the terms because you're getting a loan from them. So 5%. So 5% times 0.7% times 40%, okay? Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right, so we're done with debt. Our debt is 1.4%. Let's focus on the cost to use equity now, okay? So the cost to use equity times 60% is the remainder of this equation. And once we calculate that, then we have the weighted average cost of capital. So let's just tuck away the debt up in the corner there, okay? All right, so how do you calculate the cost of equity? Well, here's how you do it. Cost of equity equals 60%, right? Which is, remember, 60% of our capital structure is equity, 40% is debt. 60% times the cheapest rate out there, plus how volatile the stock is compared to the stock market, times what we think the stock market will do, minus the cheapest rate out there. Let me add to this, okay? Simplify it. The cheapest rate out there is called the risk-free rate, and it's basically the government rate of interest, okay? You can use 1, 2, or 3%. I've seen people use 1% and 2.5% recently, okay? So let's just use 2.5%. Then you add how volatile the stock is. That's called the beta, okay? What is the beta? Let's talk about this. Okay, well, the beta measures how your stock that you're analyzing moves relative to the stock market, okay? And let's look at a little example here. You got time on the x-axis and the price of a stock on the y-axis, okay? That is the S&P 500. That's the index, let's just say, okay? And that represents all stocks out there in a certain index, okay? There it is, the stock market. So the beta of the stock market is 1, okay? It's always 1 because we're going to calculate, or actually I'm going to show you what the beta of our company is. Our company, is that orange line there, is really volatile, right? It's a higher risk company. So we're twice as volatile as the market, right? It's just calculus, the rise over the run. We're twice as volatile as the market, right? And so our stock's beta in this case is 2, right? And usually you can get betas from free sources out there, but you can even calculate if you wanted to, but it's not worth your time. So again, our stock is twice as risky as the market, right? So we're going to multiply 2 times the rest of the stuff there. If our stock was less risky than the market, say it was only a beta of 0.8, right? Then our overall weighted average cost of capital will be lower, okay? So we're factoring in volatility here. Pretty cool. All right, what do we think the stock market will do now? Okay, so this is debatable. And I'm not the hugest fan of DCF, to be honest, because there's so many independent variables. If x plus 1 equals 4, we know x is 3. If I tell you x plus y plus q plus w equals 4, what is x exactly? There's a lot of independent variables here. All right, now, what do we think the market will do? Right, and this is debatable. Just assume 8.5% over time, okay? And then we've got 6% there. And we're getting there, almost there. Wait for it. 14.5% is our cost of equity, right? It's high. That's pretty high cost of equity. But if our beta was lower, right? If our stock was less volatile, then our cost to use equity would be a lot lower. So 60% times that, right? Plus the debt you've seen already. That means our weighted average cost of capital here is 10.1%. That's our discount rate, which is the same thing as that's our interest rate, which is the same thing as that is our WACC, weighted average cost of capital. All right, now that we've covered how to calculate free cash flow and how to calculate the terminal value and how to calculate the weighted average cost of capital, now let's look at DCF valuation, okay? And we're going to use LinkedIn as our example in the next exercise, and then there will be an exercise for you to complete.